Hello, this is Andrew. Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Investing in Real Estate series. This is going to cover partnerships. Part 1 was private lending. So in partnerships, I'll do an overview quickly of the roles and responsibilities when involved in a partnership and real estate deal, and then give you a bit of a guideline on sort of a series, like how the steps might go. So as far as the roles and responsibilities are, there is an active partner and there is a passive partner, and that is a very common relationship. Active partner is a professional real estate investor that could be full-time or part-time, who spends their energy running around looking for deals, networking, talking to people, and so on. I'll get to that in a second. And then the passive investor is perhaps somebody who works full-time, has a family, doesn't really have much of an interest in doing all the legwork, but does have the funds to invest, and so they just want to be a passive, behind the scenes sort of silent partner, money partner. So as for the active investor is going to be constantly networking in the real estate community. That's with other investors, that's with mortgage brokers, that's with insurance agents, contractors, lawyers, has an accountant for real estate specifically. So he knows a lot of people. He or she knows a lot of people in the industry and gets their name out there. So sometimes, that attracts deals and relationships and smooths things over. Sometimes when you need a favor, etc., etc. So, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So there's networking in the community. As part of the process, this active person would have built a team. The team would involve a professional accountant, a lawyer, or a couple of lawyers actually. Sometimes you need more than one. You also would have contractors in all the different trades. You might have a team specifically for you that does work for you, like a project manager, etc. You're going to have real estate agents. You're going to have mortgage brokers, insurance brokers, everything to facilitate the real estate investing buying process and renovations. And I forgot to mention property managers, people on the ground locally if they're not managing the property themselves. I personally have a property manager. So we find the deals. Active investor can look on the MLS. There's a lot of good properties, but not a lot of good deals. Sometimes you can look on there and you catch the sort of unicorn. Often there's bidding wars these days, especially. I'm filming this in 2020, and that can be basically not a very good place to find deals. So we market privately. We're looking for homeowners that perhaps are having to move quickly, having to avoid bankruptcy, maybe didn't pay their taxes, there's liens on the property, are getting divorced and have to separate the assets, really don't like dealing with realtors, don't want to pay those commissions. There's a whole plethora of reasons why somebody would sell privately, and we look for those deals because we need to get it a little bit below market value. Quite often that means renovations, just because to get something below value, you're getting what you pay for, kind of thing. But you can renovate it and bring the value up, and that's part of the process. So we have a few different methods: Facebook ads, flyer campaigns, and as well wholesalers. So Facebook ads obviously are just targeted ads, seeing if people want to sell their properties. Flyers are more or less the same thing, but it's blanketed across a geographic area. And then wholesalers, in the industry, there are people that specifically search for these properties as a job themselves and then sell them to investors. So knowing a lot of wholesalers can be very valuable as well. So throughout this process, there's various rules that us active investors can use to quickly determine if there's a deal or not, because a lot of leads are coming at you and they're not all necessarily in line with what you want. So you have various high-level processes for analyzing the property, And then once you find something that says, okay, well, this could be a good deal, then you do your due diligence and dive in a little bit deeper and more specific numbers. So we have to analyze a lot of deals to find the one that works. Then when we find the deal, we manage the process. We manage the closing process, the purchase, the close, and the utility transfers and things like that. Dealing with the paperwork, the realtors, the lawyers, etc. Manage all that. May need a few signatures from the passive partner, and I'll explain why in a second. Then the next process, generally speaking, like I said, there's always going to be some sort of uptick. You want to bring up the property. You want to renovate so that you can get the most value out of that property for its highest and best use. There is an investment philosophy or process, which is, you've heard of turnkey, where you just buy it as is. It's fine, rent it. That is not something that I get involved in. I like to buy an undervalued property, bring that property up to market value or above, and then refinance it to get most of the money out of the property. And that's a whole nother conversation, but that to me is the very best use of your money. So determining the ARV requires, again, dealing with realtors. We have some realtors on our side that will give us comps, have access to Geo Warehouse, various services where you can pinpoint what a house like that, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, if it were in good condition, what that might sell for on the open market. And that has to do with, depending on the situation, it could be because we're going to sell the property, or it could be because we're going to refinance the property. And in both cases, that ARV, which is after repair value, is a very important number, because that also dictates what you're going to pay for the property and how much renovation you're going to do on it. So I would determine the ARV and then the associated reno budget, make sure all the numbers work. During the renovation process, I bring in my team of contractors and project managers and such, make sure that everything goes on schedule and on budget, making those sort of strategic renovations where best to spend the money. And then, if something does come up, determining, okay, where we have to shift or pivot because we didn't expect, we opened this wall up and found something that now we have to fix. So we have to pull some money from another part of the budget perhaps. So I manage all that process. Place and manage tenants. So once the property is renovated, you want to then, this is for rental purposes. So we're going to find tenants and manage the tenants on an ongoing basis. Whether there's property management or if it's self-management, there is still an involvement in making decisions and so on. So that would be on the active partner. And then at some point, usually within the first 6 months, there is going to be a refinance to get part of your monies out of the property, being the down payment and the rental costs coming back out of the property, and then turning it all into a mortgage. So then the tenants end up paying the mortgage down. So you get your actual cash back out of the property. So the passive partner, again, is just basically the one who provides the money. All of the skill and expertise and the legwork is happening on the active side, and the passive side, somebody who likes the idea of real estate, wants the returns, doesn't have the time, but does have access to funds and mortgage qualification. So the key points here are: provides the down payment for the purchase of the property, provides the closing costs, lawyers' fees, title insurance, property transfer tax, and so on. You're going to provide the reno budget that is determined and agreed upon between us, determined by me and agreed upon between us. Provide 1 month's reserve fund. This is a reserve for future repairs and potential for vacancy. So we open a joint bank account. All of the rents will go into that joint bank account for where we'll divvy that out in whatever the agreement is, be it 50-50 or other. So providing 1 month's reserve into that fund right off the bat. And then of course the passive partner holds the mortgage in their name, and the title is in their name, the mortgage is in their name. The active partner is more commonly has an interest in the property, but is not on title of the property. So that is formed in a joint venture agreement, which I'll go over in the process up here. But as far as the property itself, the property insurance, the title, and the mortgage are all in the passive or the money partner's name. So the process, this is not hard and fast, but it's just a bit of a guideline. So to begin, the active partner will have had a deal. There may be a pre-existing relationship in the sense that the money partner may have come along first and said, I am interested in whatever your next deal is. And in that case, the active partner searches for the deal and then presents the deal to the money partner. There could also be a situation where the active partner, who is always searching for deals, may come up with a deal and then searches for the money partner. And in that case, either way, they would be presenting the deal to the money partner to confirm that they are in fact interested in that deal, that the returns, the calculated returns and the rents and the future value of the property is in line with sort of what their investment goals are. So then they pull the trigger, they agree on some terms. The terms could be how long the partnership will stay in effect. Typically speaking, that might be the length of the mortgage, which typically speaking might be 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, they could agree to leave everything as is and just extend the mortgage another 5 years, extend the agreement another 5 years, or they could choose to sell the property at that time, at which time generally speaking, the money partner will get all of their whatever funds have not been returned upon the refinance. They would get first right to get their money out, and then the residual amount, whatever the difference is once all expenses and initial capital outlay have been recouped, then the difference is split in whatever percentage is agreed to between the active partner and the passive partner. Typically speaking, it's 50%. There are many other arrangements, so I won't go into that. We'll just use 50% as the rule. So all the way along, you've had 50% of the rents being split between, and then upon purchase, you get 50% of the net gain divided 50%. So you come up with the terms, and the terms will be put in a JV agreement. Now, as I said, the JV agreement is what gives the active partner interest in the property. The JV agreement is a legal contract with lots of, if ends, if this happens, this happens. It's basically a conflict resolution document, as well as a brief list, 1 or 2 pages of we agree on this is the equity split, this is the term, and anything else that's important to the agreement. So that's put in writing and signed by both parties. It does not necessarily get registered to the property. I will quickly say that you can put a notice on title stating that there is a side agreement that must be acknowledged when the property is indicated to be put up for sale. It would trigger, when the lawyer does a search, it would trigger that there is this notice on title that to look at this other agreement. But the JV agreement has nothing to do with the bank. It is not actually the name of the active partner is not on the deed. So the JV agreement is the agreement that binds the two together. So the investor would have to make the funds available. The funds can come from, and I didn't write this down, but the funds could come from a HELOC, a home equity credit line that they have in their personal name, like their personal residence might have a lot of equity, so they can take a home equity credit line out on that if they don't already, and use that for the down payment funds and perhaps even the renovation funds. If there's underperforming stocks or another investment, they could use those funds to liquidate those funds and use that. They can also use, obviously, cash if they have a big bank account full of money somewhere. And then there's also registered funds, be it RSPs or TFSAs or something of that nature. That is a bit more of an involved process where a third party holding company, trust company gets involved, and they take the RSP, which is, the RSP is a separate entity to the person that owns it. Basically, it's a separate entity that doesn't pay taxes. That is a closed package. It can invest in a mortgage, or yes, it can invest in a mortgage and other things. So you can go to the Olympia Trust. You can have them do the paperwork as a registered agent, and then if that was going to be providing the mortgage on the property, then that would be an entirely different situation. The banks wouldn't have to be involved. But that's maybe getting a little bit off topic. So we could go over that at another time if that was something that was possible, if there was enough money in the RSP to provide a mortgage. But basically, you're going to use your HELOC or cash or another investment that you're going to liquidate to fund the deal. And so then the investor also needs to pre-qualify. The passive investor needs to pre-qualify for the mortgage, because the whole deal is not going to work if that doesn't to happen. So I would set you up with a mortgage broker. There's a few to choose from that I know in the industry, or if you have one that you've used many times, you can use them. Now I will say that not all mortgage brokers are created equally, that a mortgage broker that may have helped you for your primary residence may not be the same one that you use for an investment property. And that's just because sometimes they're just not familiar with the process, believe it or not. Like a standard primary residence can be a different animal than investment property in that term. So pre-qualify, and then in no particular, these are happening in the background. You have to be, obviously, have the mortgage qualification to be able to go ahead with the agreement in the first place, and you obviously have to have the funds available to go ahead with the agreement in the first place. So these are all sort of happening simultaneously, but I just put them in sequential. And then these two, being 5 and 6, start the actual mortgage application process and start the lawyer's process. Usually these will happen more or less at the same time, and quite often you'll have 30 days to make the arrangements. In some cases, investment properties are purchased inside of 2 weeks. But either way, that should be enough time, depending on the banks and the lawyers' capacity in-house, what their team is working on at the time. That should be enough time to not only apply for the mortgage and have it approved, but also to have the lawyer's paperwork, the deeds and everything ready to go. One thing that can slow the process down is appraisals. If the appraisal company is busy, because the bank is definitely going to demand that there's an appraisal on the property to make sure that the amount of money that you're asking for, that they can actually get out of it if you default on the mortgage. So those two happen simultaneously. So in a nutshell, there's a lot going on here, but that's what I'm here for, to walk you through the process. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you're watching this on YouTube and I haven't sent it to you directly, I hope you got some value out of this, and like and subscribe if you did, and leave a comment if you have any further questions. Thanks everyone. Take care. Have a great day.